Hello, Georgia.
Hi, Annette. Thanks very much. This is Africa News, and there are mixed feelings in Kenya as the trial of its vice president opens in The Hague. Also, half a dozen soldiers are jailed over a barracks blast at Mpila in Brazzaville, in which hundreds were killed. And we end with a chance for a giggle, heading to an Ethiopian classroom where keeping a straight face is no laughing matter. First up, though, the Crimes Against Humanity trial of Kenya's Vice President William Ruto opened in The Hague today. Now, he and co-accused radio boss Joshua Arap Sang pleaded not guilty to charges of having orchestrated the post-electoral ethnic violence in 2007, in which around 1,200 people were killed. Ruto's the most senior serving politician to appear in the dock of the International Criminal Court, but President Uhuru Kenyatta is also due to face similar charges in November. Now, the ICC's reputation, particularly in Africa, hangs on these high-stakes cases. Sophie van Leeuwen is in The Hague for France 24.
A big day for Kenya and for the ICC here in The Hague, because this trial would tell us how much power the ICC actually has in Africa and especially in Kenya. Kenyan MPs have been dancing and singing the national anthem on the stairs of the ICC this afternoon. They've been waving with Kenyan flags, and we all know that they don't support the ICC anymore. They want to pull out as a state member of the Statute of Rome. Still, Deputy President William Ruto was here today to attend the trial and to listen to the accusations of Fatou Bensouda, the ICC prosecutor. She says he is one of the most responsible people of the ethnic violence after the elections of 2007. He would have trained young people to attack citizens of other clans. With him on trial is also Joshua Sang, a radio journalist who would have been broadcasted the message of Ruto in 2007 and 2008. Both said, I am not guilty, I want to go free. And well, their message is Kenya must move on. The Kenya can make peace on its own without interference of the ICC, and so proves the government, the new government of Kenya. What about the victims? We have to see about that. They will be here in The Hague next week, and we'll listen what they have to say.
France 24 will, of course, be following the progress as the trial as it continues. Now, the ICC actually took charge of the cases only after Nairobi failed to set up its own tribunal. But the fact that Kenya's top politicians are heading abroad for judgment has sparked fierce debate in the country. France 24 Duncan Woodside is in the Kenyan capital.
That's right, yes, there is fierce debate surrounding these trials here in Kenya, and the International Criminal Court over time has become increasingly unpopular. There was a poll, an opinion poll, which was conducted in July this year, which showed that 61% of people here in Kenya now disapprove of the ICC trials, in a context where back in early 2012, 55% of people supported the International Criminal Court proceedings. Now, what's important to hear in terms of what's happened in the meantime is that there was a presidential election in March of this year, at which the key indictees, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, were resoundingly elected by the Kenyan people, in a context where the Kenyan people were fully cognizant of the charges facing those men. So effectively, here in Kenya, there's a real feeling that the ICC is disrespecting the democratic will of the Kenyan people. We've been out and about today talking to various people around Nairobi, the capital, and here's what they've been saying.
Why do Americans or the USA insist on this ICC case?
We have a new constitution, so I think the ICC was not necessary in Kenya.
Now that the local process has already been overtaken by events and we are there, I think it's the only instrument that can guarantee justice is served to all the victims and to the perpetrators.
It sort of drives away impunity. The leaders can do it, and who is that man in between not to face justice?
There is a fear here in Kenya that these trials effectively are resuscitating memories of the violence 5 years ago, and because proceedings will be available to view for the Kenyan people, there could be a situation arising whereby old tensions are effectively restoked. And that's something that people have been saying today here in Kenya. There is that risk that the animosities between the Kalenjin and the Kikuyu communities in particular could rise up once again. But for the time being, of course, at least in terms of the political heavyweights, the two indictees, William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta, they're standing united against the International Criminal Court. And at the very top of Kenyan politics, effectively, there is an alliance between these two ethnic groups.
Now look at some other news. 6 soldiers have been jailed in Congo-Brazzaville over the deaths of around 300 people in a blast at an ammunition dump in the neighbourhood of Mpila in the capital last year. 26 others were acquitted of the charges. The chief defendant, Corporal Kakom Kwak Blood, has been sentenced to 15 years hard labour for deliberately setting fire to the depot. The explosion at the barracks wounded almost 2,500 people and left 17,000 homeless. Zimbabwe's president has named his new cabinet on Tuesday. Robert Mugabe announced a surprise lineup appointing several ministries, including that of finance, to relatively inexperienced candidates. Close ally and former lawyer Patrick Chinamasa's taken over the treasury. The unveiling of Mugabe's new government follows the 89-year-old's re-election in July in fiercely disputed polls. M23 rebels and the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo finally restarted peace talks in neighbouring Uganda on Tuesday. The two sides are meeting for the first time since negotiations on ending fierce conflict in eastern DRC ground to a halt in May. UN forces have backed Congolese troops in the latest outbreak of fighting to follow M23's mutiny in April 2012. In Nice, 10 Congolese athletes in France to compete in the Jeux de la Francophonie, French-speaking countries equivalent to the Commonwealth Games, absconded over the weekend. The rest of their delegation say they're shocked at their teammates' bid to illegally stay in Europe.
These were the last images of the entire Congolese team on the day the Francophone Games began in Nice. On Sunday, 10 of the 37 athletes disappeared into thin air. They included 7 basketball players, 2 cyclists and a footballer.
We were together. Their room and board were fine. They are well paid. I really don't know what's going on.
On Sunday, they had all received a bonus of €1,000 to cover their personal expenses. In the evening, some of them didn't return to their rooms in the university dormitory.
The big problem is that of bonuses. In all the delegations, there are problems with the bonuses and the frustration. They have not disappeared because we can talk to them. They are still in Nice.
The event's organisers said it was up to national delegations to keep tabs on their athletes.
Of course, we had anticipated that this could happen during such an event, especially when it takes place in a Western country.
It's not the first time Congolese athletes have run away like this. Last year, 4 members of the country's team disappeared during the London Olympics.
Finally, we end with a chance for a laugh. Heading to a school in Addis Ababa where cracking up in class is actively encouraged and giggling at the teacher could get you top marks. Josh Vardy has more.
These students can't help breaking into uncontrollable laughter. But at this school in Addis Ababa, it's not frowned on, it's encouraged. This idiosyncratic class is led by Belachu Girma. At the age of 30, he lost everything. His business collapsed and his wife died of AIDS. He was addicted to alcohol and cut before discovering a new drug, one that saved his life: laughter.
You know, when I laugh from my bottom of heart, really my laughter becomes contagious, it touches. Now, when I look your eye contact, now something is coming up from you.
Guillermo was crowned World Master of Laughter when he laughed non-stop for 3 hours and 6 minutes. This title allowed him to open his unique school, which charges $25 for 2 months of learning to let go.
Before coming here, I was worried because I have cancer. I thought it would kill me. I was desperate, but since I've been here, I've felt like I could live again.
The laughter itself isn't a cure, but it does produce natural antidepressants such as endorphins, which are good for the body and good for the mind.
Through different mechanisms, it relaxes the blood vessels. Okay, when it relaxes the blood vessels, the oxygen flow increases. Okay, the patient starts to feel better.
These days, Guillermo gets invited to conferences the world over where he's an ambassador for the therapeutic values of laughter. When visiting troubled places, he says there's no better tool to reconcile people.
Nothing like ending on a high. Well, that does wrap up Africa News from me for now, but I will be back with more in an hour, Annette.
Thank you, Georgia. And do stay with us, because coming up after the break, my colleague Mark Owen will be bringing you the latest as the international community frantically seeks to find a diplomatic resolution to the Syria crisis. Do stay with us here on France 24.
No, it's funny, it literally just...
This week, we're down to earth in Sweden on a hunt for urban treasure. Beneath many of the downtown streets lies a bounty of abandoned metal trapped in forgotten cables and pipes. Join us as we explore where the cities are the mines of the future.
Don't miss Down to Earth, Thursday, 5:40 p.m. Paris time on France 24.
Down to Earth, brought to you by the African Development Bank.